The medical conference hall buzzed with voices from a dozen different species. Dr. Jiho Kang stood near the back, watching the presentations with mild interest. He had come to the border colony of New Seoul Station, hoping to find new clients for his neural technology lab. At 32, he had already made a name for himself designing devices that helped various alien species adapt to human environments. The current speaker was tall and elegant, with skin that glowed with soft blue patterns. High Priest Sungho of the Velari people spoke about accepting one's natural state. His voice carried authority and warmth. Beside him stood a young Velari girl, her hand resting on his arm for guidance. Her eyes were open but unfocused, staring at nothing. "My daughter Hana represents the 40% of our people born without sight," Sungho said, "but she is not disabled. She is blessed. The eternal darkness. Faith teaches us that those who cannot see are closer to the divine void. They hear truths that sighted beings miss. They are not broken. They are holy." Jiho frowned. He had heard of the Velari's beliefs, but hearing them stated so plainly made his stomach turn. The girl looked about 16 in human years. She stood perfectly still, her face a mask of peaceful acceptance. But Jiho noticed her fingers twitching against her father's sleeve. After the presentation, Jiho set up his demonstration booth. He had brought several devices: a translator that worked through touch, a sensor that helped beings navigate in the dark, and his newest creation, a neural scanner that could map brain activity in real time. He was showing this scanner to a curious doctor when he heard a crash. Someone had knocked over a display near the Velari booth. People rushed to help. In the confusion, the young Velari girl, Hana, had become separated from her father. She stood alone, her hands reaching out uncertainly. She was moving toward Jiho's booth, drawn by the electronic hum of his equipment. "Careful," Jiho said, reaching out. "There are cables on the floor," but she couldn't hear him over the noise. Her foot caught on a wire and she fell forward. Jiho caught her, and as he did, the neural scanner on his table activated. The device's sensors touched her temple. For 3 seconds, the machine interfaced directly with her brain. Hana gasped. Her whole body went rigid. Through the scanner's connection, Jiho's visual cortex linked to hers. She was seeing through his eyes. Colors flooded her mind for the first time. She saw faces, lights, the curved ceiling of the station, the stars visible through the windows. She saw her own hands, her own body. She saw everything. Then the connection broke. Hana collapsed in Jiho's arms, sobbing, not from pain, but from overwhelming emotion. She had seen. For 3 impossible seconds she had seen the universe. "Hana," High Priest Sungho pushed through the crowd. He took his daughter from Jiho's arms, his glowing patterns flashing red with anger. "What did you do to her?" "I'm sorry, it was an accident," Jiho said quickly. The neural scanner activated when she fell. It created a temporary bridge between our visual processing centers. "She's fine, there's no damage." "No damage?" Sungho's voice was ice. "You have shown her something she was never meant to see. You have corrupted her blessed state with your machine." Hana was still crying, her hands covering her face. But she wasn't crying from fear or pain. Jiho could hear her whispered words, I saw. The conference officials separated them. Apologies were made. The Velari delegation left quickly. Jiho packed his equipment with shaking hands, his mind racing. The look on that girl's face when she had seen the world, it haunted him. 3 days later, Jiho received a message on his private terminal. The sender had used an anonymous routing system, but the message was clear. "Please, I need to see again. The address is below. Come alone." Hana Jiho stared at the message for a long time. This was dangerous. The Velari took their religious beliefs seriously. Interfering could cause diplomatic problems. Administrator Minho Cho had already sent him a warning about the conference incident. Getting involved further could ruin his career, but he kept thinking about those 3 seconds. The pure joy and wonder on Hana's face, the way she had seen colors for the first time and couldn't even process what she was experiencing. He went to the address. It was a small apartment in the station's residential quarter. Hana answered the door, moving carefully, counting steps. Inside, she had arranged furniture in careful patterns so she could navigate by touch and memory. "Thank you for coming," she said softly. "I wasn't sure you would." "Your father will be furious if he finds out," Jiho said. "I know." Hana sat down, her hands folded in her lap. "Dr. Kang, can I ask you something?" In those 3 seconds, I saw colors, but I don't know their names. The thing above us that was blue with white. What was that? The sky. You were seeing the simulated sky on the station's ceiling. Sky, she repeated, testing the word. And the bright things that hurt to look at? Lights. And your face. There were so many details. Texture and shape, and I don't have words for it. Jiho sat down across from her. Hana, why did you contact me? She was quiet for a moment. My father says I am blessed, that my blindness brings me closer to God, that I hear truths others miss, and maybe that's true. But Dr. Kang, in those 3 seconds, I felt something I've never felt before. I felt like I was waking up, like my whole life has been a dream and I didn't even know I was asleep. Your father believes your blindness is sacred. My father has never been blind. Her voice was sharp, then softened. I love him. I respect our faith. But he never asked me what I wanted. He told me I was blessed, and I believed him because I didn't know anything else. But now I know. There's a whole world I'm missing, and I want to see it. Jiho leaned back, his mind already racing through possibilities. The scanner created a temporary bridge, but making something permanent that would require months of research. I would need to understand Velari neurology completely, map every neural pathway, build an interface that could translate visual data into something your brain can process. Can you do it? Maybe. But Hana, if I do this, there will be consequences. Your father, your religious leaders, they will see this as heresy. I know. The colony government might get involved. This could cause diplomatic problems. I know. You could lose your family, your community, everything. Hana turned her face toward him, her unseeing eyes somehow finding his exact location. Dr. Kang, I have lived 16 years in darkness. Everyone tells me it's a blessing, that I should be grateful, that seeing would corrupt me. But for 3 seconds I saw the stars, and I want to see them again, whatever it costs. Jiho looked at her determined face and made his decision. Okay, we'll need to work in secret, and I'll need help. I have a partner, Yuna Park. She's a neurobiologist. If anyone can figure out Velari brain structure, it's her. Hana smiled, and it was like the sun breaking through clouds. Thank you. When do we start? Tomorrow. But Hana, I need you to understand something. This isn't just about building a device. If we succeed, if we give you sight, you'll be challenging your entire culture's beliefs. Are you ready for that? Dr. Kang, Hana said quietly. They told me my darkness was holy. But they never asked if I wanted to be holy. They just told me I was. For the first time in my life, someone is giving me a choice. Yes, I'm ready. Jiho nodded slowly. He didn't know it yet, but that choice would change everything. Not just for one blind girl, but for an entire civilization. The seeds of war had been planted, and they would grow in ways no one could predict. The laboratory was small and cluttered with equipment. Yuna Park looked at the scans displayed on her screen and shook her head. This is insane, Jiho. Do you understand how different Velari neurology is from human neurology? Jiho paced behind her, watching the neural pathways light up in different colors. That's why I need you. You're the best neurobiologist on this station. Flattery won't change biology. Yuna zoomed in on a particular section. Velari brains process sensory information through completely different structures. Their visual cortex, in sighted individuals, works more like our auditory processing. It's not just about sending visual data to her brain. We have to teach her brain a completely new language. Hana sat quietly in the corner, her fingers tracing raised patterns on a data pad. She had been coming to the lab every night for 2 weeks, sneaking away from her temple residence. How long will it take? She asked. Yuna glanced at Jiho, then back at her screens. Months, maybe a year. And that's if everything goes perfectly. Then we should start now, Hana said simply. They worked in secret. Every night after Hana finished her temple duties, she would slip away and come to the lab. Jiho and Yuna took samples, ran scans, built models of her neural structure. Hana proved to be incredibly intelligent. She learned human neuroscience concepts quickly, asking questions that showed deep understanding. Explain to me again how photons work, she said one night, her fingers flying over a braille display. Jiho pulled up a simplified diagram on the holographic projector. Light is made of tiny particles called photons. They bounce off objects and enter the eye. The eye converts them into electrical signals that the brain interprets as images. But my eyes don't work. Right, so instead of fixing your eyes, we're going to bypass them completely. We'll use cameras to capture photons, convert them to electrical signals, and send those signals directly to your brain. Hana tilted her head, thinking, like how I use echolocation? Sound waves bounce off objects, my brain interprets the echoes as spatial information. Exactly. Except instead of sound waves, we're using light waves. And instead of my ears and auditory processing, we're using cameras and my visual cortex. Yuna looked up from her work, impressed. You're getting it faster than most of my graduate students. As weeks turned into months, the project took shape. They called it the Phoenix Visor. It was elegant in its simplicity, a curved device that wrapped around the head with small cameras positioned where eyes would naturally focus. Neural contact points touched specific locations on the skull, creating a direct interface with the brain's visual processing centers. But building the hardware was the easy part. Programming the neural translation software was nightmare work. Yuna spent countless hours mapping how Hana's brain would need to interpret visual data. Every test brought new problems. Her brain is rejecting the basic color spectrum, Yuna said one night, frustrated. We're sending the data correctly, but it's processing it as pain signals. Try routing it through her auditory cortex first, Hana suggested. My people process most information through sound and touch. Maybe my brain needs to hear color before it can see it. It was a bizarre suggestion, but it worked. By translating visual data through audio processing patterns first, Hana's brain began to accept the information. Colors became something she could understand. Not everyone was supportive. Administrator Minho Cho called Jiho to his office 3 months into the project. The administrator was a stern man with gray hair and tired eyes. Dr. Kang, I've received complaints from the Velari Temple. They say you're conducting unauthorized experiments on one of their members. I'm helping someone who asked for help, Jiho replied. You're interfering with their religious practices. Do you understand the diplomatic implications? Humanity needs the Velari, their technology, their trade routes, their military protection. We're a young species in a dangerous galaxy. We can't afford to offend them. And what about Hana's rights? Doesn't she get to choose? Minho's expression softened slightly. Dr. Kang, I admire your principles, but you're thinking about one person. I have to think about millions of humans living on stations like this. If the Velari cut off support, people will die. So I should tell a girl who wants to see that she has to stay blind to keep trade routes open? Yes, Minho said bluntly. That's exactly what I'm telling you. Stop this project. That's an order. Jiho left the office without agreeing to anything. He went straight back to the lab, where Hana and Yuna were waiting. They want us to stop, he told them. Yuna set down her tools. I was afraid of that. Jiho, maybe we should listen. The political pressure is only going to get worse. I'm not stopping, Hana said firmly. This is my choice, my brain, my life. Your choice could hurt a lot of people, Yuna argued gently. If the Velari Empire gets angry enough, they might retaliate against human colonies. That's not my fault. Hana's voice rose with frustration. Why is everyone else's comfort more important than my freedom? Why do I have to stay blind so that politicians feel safe? The room fell silent. Jiho looked at this young alien girl, her face set with determination, and he made his decision. We continue. But we work faster. If they're going to shut us down, we finish before they can. They worked 18-hour days. Yuna stopped going home, sleeping on a couch in the lab. Jiho survived on coffee and determination. Hana pushed herself hardest of all, volunteering for test after test, even when the neural feedback caused headaches. 6 months after they started, the Phoenix Visor was ready. It sat on the lab table, looking almost too simple to be revolutionary. A sleek curve of metal and circuitry, lined with neural contact points, with small cameras embedded in the front. Last chance to back out, Jiho said quietly. Hana reached out, her hands finding the visor by touch. I'm not backing out. I've waited my whole life for this moment. I just didn't know I was waiting. Yuna helped position the visor on Hana's head. The neural contact points glowed softly as they connected with her skin. The cameras came online, their tiny lenses focusing on the lab around them. Initializing neural bridge, Yuna said, her voice tight with tension. Starting data transmission in 3, 2, 1. Hana gasped. Light flooded her consciousness. Not the vague brightness she had always sensed, but actual light. Colors exploded in her mind, overwhelming and beautiful. She saw Jiho's face first. His dark hair, his tired eyes, the tears streaming down his cheeks. She saw the worry lines on his forehead, the gentle smile on his lips. She saw Yuna standing beside her, one hand covering her mouth, her own eyes wet. "Oh," Hana whispered. "Oh, you're both so... I never imagined faces would be so complicated. So beautiful." She turned her head and the world moved with her. She saw the cluttered lab, equipment stacked on tables, holographic displays floating in the air showing neural scans. She saw her own reflection in a dark monitor, a young Velari girl with glowing blue patterns on her skin, wearing a silver visor that wrapped around her head like a crown. But then she looked at the window. Stars. Thousands of stars scattered across the black canvas of space. Nebulae glowing in colors she had never dreamed existed. The galaxy itself spinning slowly in the infinite dark. That's what you see?" She breathed. "All the time?" "When we look up, yes," Jiho said. Hana started crying. But she was smiling too, her face a mixture of joy and overwhelming emotion. How could anyone call this darkness? How could anyone say that not seeing this is a blessing? She spent the next hour exploring the lab, touching things and seeing them simultaneously. A pen was blue, a desk was white, Jiho's jacket was black. Every object had color and shape and detail that touch alone had never revealed. Finally, exhausted, she sat down. "Thank you, both of you. You gave me something I didn't even know I was missing." Yuna smiled weakly. "Now comes the hard part. What happens next?" As if in answer, Jiho's communication device chimed. It was a message from High Priest Sung-ho. "I know what you have done. Bring my daughter to the temple immediately. This heresy ends now." Hana's hand went to the visor, holding it protectively. "I'm not taking it off." "They'll try to make you," Yuna warned. "Let them try." Hana stood, facing them both with her newly seeing eyes. "I was born blind. I was told it was sacred. But I wasn't asked. Now I have a choice, and I choose this. I choose to see." The Phoenix visor glowed softly in the lab's dim light, a small piece of technology that would shake a civilization to its core. News traveled fast on New Sol Station. Within 3 days, every Velari on the colony had heard about Hana, the blind girl who could now see, the priestess's daughter who wore a human device and looked upon the world with her own eyes. They came to Jiho's lab in small groups at first. Blind Velari who had lived their entire lives being told their condition was holy. They came quietly, ashamed of their curiosity, but unable to stay away. They wanted to know if it was real. Hana met them at the door. She could see their faces now, read their expressions. Fear and hope mixed together. "Is it true?" asked an elderly Velari man named Dong-yun. "Can you really see?" "Yes." Hana smiled at him. "Your skin patterns are green and gold. They're beautiful." Dong-yun's hands trembled. "I've never known what color my patterns were. People told me, but I couldn't understand. What is green?" Hana struggled to explain. It's like cool water sounds, but for your eyes. And gold is warm like sunlight feels on your face." More came. Dozens, then hundreds. Blind Velari packed the corridors outside the lab. Some just wanted to hear Hana describe what she saw. Others begged Jiho and Yuna to make them visors too. The demand was overwhelming, but the religious establishment reacted with fury. High Priest Sung-ho appeared on public broadcasts across all Velari channels. His face was stern, his voice heavy with authority. "My daughter has been corrupted by human technology. She has abandoned the sacred gift of blindness for the false promises of sight. This is heresy of the highest order, the eternal darkness. Faith teaches us that blindness brings us closer to the divine void. To reject this blessing is to reject God itself." But his words didn't have the effect he expected. A voice rose in opposition. Priestess Sora was younger than Sung-ho, with silver patterns on her dark skin. She had always been considered progressive, but now she spoke openly against the temple's teachings. "High Priest Sung-ho asks us to accept blindness as holy. But I must ask, if our God created the universe with such beauty, with colors and light and stars, why would we be forbidden from seeing it? If sight is evil, why did the divine create eyes at all?" Her words sparked debate throughout the Velari community. Some called her a heretic. Others whispered agreement. The schism had begun. Hana appeared on broadcasts too. She wore her visor proudly, sitting before cameras that transmitted her image across the station and beyond. "I am not corrupted," she said, her voice steady. "I am not lost. For the first time in my life, I am found. My father told me I was complete in darkness. But I wasn't. I was missing half the universe. Now I can see my father's face. I can see my friends. I can see the stars I always dreamed about. How can that be wrong? The messages flooded in. Some were hateful, calling her a traitor to her people, but many more were from blind Velari who had spent their lives quietly suffering, told their pain was holy. They thanked her for speaking the truth they had never dared voice. High Priest Sungho issued an ultimatum. Any Velari who received a visor would be exiled from the Empire. They would lose their citizenship, their family connections, their place in society. They would be declared spiritually dead, cut off from the faith forever. It was meant to scare people away from the technology. Instead, dozens of blind Velari chose exile. They lined up outside Jiho's lab, carrying their few possessions, ready to abandon everything for the chance to see. Jiho and Yuna worked around the clock, building visors as fast as they could. Each one required careful calibration to match the individual's neural structure. Among those who came was a young Velari woman named Minji. She was a musician, famous for her compositions that used sound to describe visual beauty she had never experienced. When Jiho placed the visor on her head and activated it, she wept. "Color is real," she whispered. "I thought it was just metaphor, poetry, but it's real. Red exists. Blue exists. They're not just words." She spent hours staring at simple objects. A red cup, a blue cloth, a yellow flower. Each color was a revelation, but the political situation was deteriorating. Administrator Minho received a formal complaint from the Velari Empire's ambassador. They demanded that the visor project be shut down immediately and all devices destroyed. They wanted Jiho arrested and extradited to face charges of cultural destruction. "You need to stop," Minho told Jiho in another meeting. "The Empire is threatening to cut off all trade with human colonies. They're talking about military action." "Military action?" Yuna looked shocked. "Over assistive technology?" "It's not about technology to them. It's about faith. You're challenging the foundation of their religious beliefs. You're telling them their God is wrong." "I'm not telling anyone anything," Jiho said firmly. "I'm giving people a choice. If their faith is strong, they'll choose to stay blind. If not, they'll choose to see. Either way, it should be their decision." "And what about the humans who depend on Velari protection? What about the colonies that need their technology to survive? Their choice affects millions of people." Jiho had no answer to that. The weight of it pressed down on him. One girl's freedom versus the safety of millions. How could he balance that equation? The crisis came to a head when High Priest Sungho himself arrived at the station. He brought temple guards and a delegation of senior priests. He demanded to see his daughter. Hana agreed to meet him, but only in a public space with witnesses. They met in the station's central plaza, with hundreds of people watching, both human and Velari. Sungho looked older than Hana remembered. His patterns flickered with distress as he looked at his daughter wearing the silver visor. "Hana, my child, please, remove that device. Come home to the temple. Come back to the faith. Father, I love you, but I can't go back. You are destroying our people. This technology is tearing us apart. Families are divided. The temple is in chaos. And for what? So you can see colors? It's not about colors, Father. It's about choice. You told me I was blessed to be blind. You never asked if I felt blessed. You never asked what I wanted." Sungho's voice broke. "I am your father. I know what is best for you." "No." Hana's voice was gentle but firm. "You know what you believe is best for you. But my life is mine. My eyes are mine, for they should have been all along. If you don't remove that device, I will have no daughter. The temple will declare you spiritually dead. You will be exiled forever." The plaza was silent. Everyone waited for Hana's response. She reached up and touched the visor, her fingers tracing its curves. For a moment, Jiho thought she might remove it, might choose her family over her sight. Then Hana looked at her father, really looked at him, seeing his face clearly for the first time. She saw the tears on his cheeks, the pain in his eyes, the love and fear mixed together. "Then I choose exile," she said quietly. "I choose to see." Sungho made a sound like a wounded animal. He turned away, unable to bear the sight of her. "You are no longer my daughter. The temple declares you dead. You are nothing to us now." He left with his guards, his back rigid with grief and anger. Hana stood alone in the plaza, still wearing her visor. She didn't cry. She just stood there looking at the world around her. The people watching. The curved walls of the station. The false sky overhead with its projected clouds. Priestess Sora stepped forward from the crowd. She carried a small bag of belongings. "If Hana is exiled, then I choose exile too," she announced. "I have spent years studying our ancient texts. High Priest Sungho preaches that blindness has always been sacred to our people, but that is a lie." She pulled out an old datapad projecting images that floated in the air for everyone to see. Ancient Velari texts thousands of years old. Our ancestors treated blindness. They built devices to help the blind see. It was only 300 years ago that the temple declared such treatment heresy. "Do you know why?" "Because a blind population is easier to control. If you cannot see, you must depend on priests to guide you, to tell you what the world looks like, to interpret reality for you." Murmurs spread through the crowd. Sungho's guards tried to confiscate the datapad, but Sora had already transmitted the documents across the station's network. Everyone could access them now. "The eternal darkness faith is not eternal," Sora continued. "It is recent. It is political. And it is wrong." More blind Velari stepped forward, holding bags, ready to choose exile, ready to choose sight. High Priest Sungho watched from a distance as his authority crumbled. His face was a mask of rage and pain. Later that night, Jiho found Hana on the observation deck staring out at the stars through the massive windows. "Are you okay?" he asked. "I saw my father's face today. Really saw it. And then I lost him." She wiped her eyes, though the visor's sensors adjusted to let the tears flow naturally. "Was it worth it?" "Only you can answer that." Hana was quiet for a long moment. "Yes, it was worth it. Because even though I lost my father, I found myself. I found my choice. And that matters. But their troubles were just beginning. That night, Velari Empire warships entered the system. The religious conflict had become a military one. The fight for one girl's freedom was about to become a war. The Velari Imperial fleet appeared on the edge of the system like dark ghosts. 12 warships, each one twice the size of the largest human vessel. They moved into formation around New Seoul Station, cutting off all traffic in and out. Captain Hyunwoo Nam stood on the bridge of the human defense frigate Incheon, watching the enemy ships with growing dread. His small fleet of 5 ships was laughably outmatched. "They're hailing us." "Captain," his communications officer reported. The face that appeared on screen was High Priest Sungho, but he wore military insignia now. The Velari Empire made no distinction between religious and political authority. "Captain Nam, this is High Priest Commander Sungho. The Empire demands you surrender the following individuals immediately: Dr. Jiho Kang, Dr. Yuna Park, and all Velari citizens wearing illegal neural devices. They will be returned to Velari space for religious correction." "Religious correction?" Hyunwoo kept his voice neutral. "What does that mean?" "The devices will be removed. The heretics will be re-educated in proper faith. This is not negotiable." Hyunwoo looked at the tactical display. His 5 ships against 12. If it came to fighting, they would lose in minutes. But surrendering meant condemning hundreds of Velari refugees to have their visors forcibly removed. It meant letting the Empire punish people for wanting to see. "I need to consult with Station Command," Hyunwoo said. "Give us 6 hours. You have 3. The transmission ended. On the station, Administrator Minho called an emergency meeting. Jiho, Yuna, and Priestess Sora were there, along with human and alien representatives from the colony. "We can't win a military engagement," Minho said bluntly. "Our options are surrender or die." "I'm open to suggestions." "We don't surrender," Jiho said. "Those people chose freedom. We can't hand them back to be tortured. Then everyone on this station dies when the Velari start shooting. Is that your choice?" Before anyone could answer, Priestess Sora spoke up. "There is another option. Information warfare." She pulled up files on the central display. The ancient Velari texts she had discovered showing the truth about their history. The Empire's power comes from their faith. The priests control the blind population by claiming blindness is holy. But I have proof that this teaching is only 300 years old. Before that, Velari society freely treated blindness. The Empire has been lying to our people for centuries. How does that help us? Minho asked. We broadcast the truth. Show every Velari citizen in the Empire what their leaders have hidden. Expose the lie at the heart of the eternal darkness faith. Yuna looked troubled. You're talking about destroying their religion. Billions of people believe in that faith. Many of them are blind and have found peace in that belief. We'd be taking that away from them. Truth is not kind, Sora replied, but it is necessary. Yes, some will be hurt, some will feel their faith was wasted, but others will be freed. Freed to choose. Freed to see if they want to. Jiho thought about it. Destroying a faith, even a false one, felt wrong. But letting the Empire force blindness on people felt worse. How would we even broadcast it, he asked. They control the communication networks. We use the station's deep space transmitter. It's powerful enough to reach every Velari world simultaneously. We send the data on every frequency, every channel. Make it impossible to block. Minho rubbed his face tiredly. If we do this, we'll be starting a war. Not just a military engagement, but an ideological war that could tear apart Velari society. They already started the war when they sent those ships, Jiho said. The debate continued for 2 hours. Finally, they put it to a vote. The decision was close, but the majority agreed. They would broadcast the truth. Captain Hyunwoo bought them time by asking for negotiations, stalling the Velari fleet. Meanwhile, Yuna and a team of technicians prepared the broadcast. They compiled everything, ancient texts, financial records showing how the priests profited from controlling the blind, testimony from elderly Velari who remembered the transition to the new doctrine. And at the center of it all, they placed Hana's message. She recorded it in the lab, wearing her visor, speaking directly to the camera. My name is Hana. I am Velari. I was born blind and I was told it was a blessing, that I was closer to God than those who could see. I believed this because everyone I trusted told me it was true. But then for 3 seconds I saw the universe, and I realized I had been lied to my entire life. She paused, choosing her words carefully. Our priests tell us that blindness is sacred, that it has always been our way. But I have seen the evidence. Our ancestors treated blindness. They helped their blind citizens see. It was only when the priest class wanted more control that they declared sight heresy. They kept us in darkness and called it light. They kept us dependent and called it divine. Her voice grew stronger. I can see now, not just with my eyes but with my mind. I see the truth. Our religion is not based on divine wisdom. It is based on political power. They lied to us for 300 years, and I will not accept that lie anymore. She looked directly into the camera. To every blind Velari watching this, you have a choice. You always had a choice, but they hid it from you. You can stay as you are if that brings you peace. But if you want to see if you've ever wondered what colors look like, if you've ever wanted to look at your children's faces or watch a sunset, then know this. You can. The technology exists. The only thing stopping you is fear and old lies. The broadcast went out on every channel. Simultaneously, it hit every Velari world in the Empire. The response was immediate chaos. Blind Velari citizens rioted in the streets of their homeworlds, demanding access to Visor technology. The Imperial government tried to suppress the information, but it was already spreading too fast. Velari who had accepted their blindness as divine suddenly questioned everything they had been taught. The Imperial fleet orbiting New Sol Station began receiving conflicting orders. Some ships were commanded to attack. Others were told to withdraw. The fleet commander argued with priests who argued with politicians who argued with each other. And then, 4 of the 12 ships broke formation. Their captains announced they would no longer follow orders that suppressed truth. They defected, joining the Human Defense Fleet. High Priest Sungho watched his authority crumble in real time. The faith he had devoted his life to was fracturing. His response was rage. All ships attack the station. Destroy the source of this heresy. 3 ships obeyed. 5 refused and withdrew from the system. The remaining 4 sat paralyzed by indecision. Captain Hyunwoo's fleet, now reinforced by the defectors, engaged the attacking ships. Space lit up with weapons fire. The battle was brief but brutal. Human ships were smaller and faster, but Velari ships had better shields and weapons. The fight was even, but Sungho was not content with a space battle. He wanted to personally end what his daughter had started. He led a boarding team directly to the station, forcing their way through the docking bay. Station security tried to stop them, but the Velari temple guards were trained warriors. They fought through the corridors toward Jiho's lab. Alarms blared. Jiho and Yuna tried to evacuate, but there wasn't time. Hana refused to run. This is where it started, she said. This is where it ends. The lab doors exploded inward. High Priest Sungho stepped through. carrying a device that crackled with electromagnetic energy, an EMP generator. It would fry every electronic device in the lab, including all the visors. Behind him, his guards leveled weapons at the humans. "It ends now," Sung-Ho said. His voice was hollow, empty of everything except pain. "My daughter, my faith, my life's work, all destroyed by your arrogance, human." "This wasn't arrogance," Ji-Ho said calmly. "It was compassion. You call destroying my people's faith compassion? I call giving them choice compassion. Your faith told them they had no choice, that they were blessed to be blind. But Hana didn't feel blessed. And she deserved to decide for herself." Sung-Ho's hand hovered over the EMP trigger. "If I activate this, every visor on the station stops working. Hundreds of people return to darkness, including my daughter." Hana stepped forward. She reached up and removed her visor, setting it on the table between them. She stood in darkness again, facing the direction of her father's voice. "Father, look at me. Really look at me. Without the politics, without the faith, without everything else. Just look at your daughter. Am I suffering? Am I corrupted? You betrayed everything I taught you. No. I chose something different than what you chose for me." "That's not betrayal. That's growing up?" Sung-Ho's hands shook. His fingers touched the trigger. One press and everything would end. All the visors would die. Hundreds of people would return to blindness. His authority could be restored. His faith could be saved. But he looked at his daughter. At Hana, standing straight and proud, her face calm even in darkness. She was not broken. She was not corrupted. She was just different than he had wanted her to be. And he realized he had never actually asked her what she wanted. Not once in her 16 years of life. He had told her she was blessed. He had told her she was holy. He had told her she should be grateful. But he had never asked if she was happy. His finger moved away from the trigger. "I cannot accept what you've done," he said quietly. "I cannot approve of this choice. I know, Father, but I will not take it from you. Not anymore." The Velari Empire did not collapse overnight. No civilization does. But the cracks that appeared that day spread wide and deep, changing everything. Within weeks, the empire split into two distinct factions. The Orthodox Union maintained the traditional beliefs, insisting that blindness remained sacred and that wearing visors was heresy. The Enlightened Coalition accepted the new technology and the historical truth that Priestess Sora had revealed. They reformed their faith, arguing that if their God created such a beautiful universe, surely they were meant to witness it. A ceasefire was negotiated. Both sides agreed on one crucial principle. No one would be forced. Blind Velari could choose to remain blind if their faith required it, or they could choose to see. The choice belonged to the individual, not to the state or the temple. It was an uneasy peace, but it held. The effects rippled across the galaxy. Other species watched the Velari civil rights movement with intense interest. Questions arose everywhere. Did individuals have the right to modify themselves against cultural norms? Where did tradition end and oppression begin? Who had the right to decide these things? New Seoul Station became famous as the birthplace of what the media called the choice movement. Refugees from dozens of species came to the station, seeking their own freedom from limiting cultural practices. The small colony station transformed into a symbol of personal liberty, but the cost was high. Administrator Minho Cho was removed from his position. Earth government officials deemed him too risky, too willing to prioritize individual rights over diplomatic stability. He accepted the decision without complaint. In his last transmission to Ji-Ho, he said simply, "Sometimes doing the right thing cost everything, but it's still right." Captain Hyunwoo faced a court-martial for refusing direct orders to surrender the Velari refugees. The military trial became a media sensation. Humans across the colonies debated whether he was a hero or a traitor. In the end, the jury acquitted him, declaring that some orders should not be followed. He became a symbol for military personnel who stood up for moral principles over blind obedience. Yuna Park received the Nobel Prize in Xenobiology for her work on cross-species neural interfaces. She accepted the award but donated all the prize money to refugees. In her acceptance speech, she spoke honestly about her doubts. "I helped build the Phoenix Visor. I helped give sight to beings who had lived their whole lives blind. But I must tell you, I still wonder if we did the right thing." People died in the conflict that followed. Families were torn apart. A civilization was fractured. Was one girl's freedom worth all that pain? She paused, her expression troubled. I don't have an answer, but I know this. The alternative was to force her to stay blind to keep others comfortable. And that, I believe, would have been a greater evil. Sometimes progress hurts, sometimes truth destroys. But the world that comes after is built on honesty rather than lies. Jiho refused all awards and recognition. He returned to his small lab and continued his work quietly. He established a foundation that provided visors free of charge to any Velari who requested one. He never patented the technology, never profited from it. When reporters asked why, his answer was simple. This isn't mine to profit from. This is a right, not a product. He received thousands of messages from Velari across the galaxy. Some were angry, calling him a destroyer of faith. But many more were grateful. Parents wrote to thank him for letting them see their children's faces for the first time. Artists described the joy of finally seeing the colors they had only imagined. Scientists talked about discoveries they could make now that they could see their experiments. One letter came from an elderly Velari woman named Kyung-suk. She had lived 83 years in darkness, told her whole life that her blindness brought her closer to God. At 83, she put on a visor for the first time. I spent my life believing my darkness was holy, she wrote. And perhaps in some way it was. I learned to appreciate sound and touch and smell in ways sighted beings never do. But Dr. Kang, I wish someone had asked me if I wanted to appreciate sight too. I wish someone had given me the choice. Thank you for giving my grandchildren what I never had. The freedom to decide for themselves. Hana's journey took her in unexpected directions. She became an ambassador of sorts, traveling between the Orthodox Union and the Enlightened Coalition, arguing for understanding on both sides. My father chose to remain in darkness, she would say in her speeches, and that is valid. His faith gives him peace and purpose. I chose to see, and that is valid too. Both choices deserve respect. She pursued her dream of studying astronomy. Her unique perspective, understanding the universe through both sound and sight, led to breakthrough discoveries. She found patterns in cosmic radiation that others had missed, precisely because she knew how to interpret the universe in multiple ways. Her research on dark matter earned her recognition from the Galactic Scientific Council. When she accepted the award, she wore her phoenix visor proudly. In her acceptance speech, she made a confession. Sometimes I wonder what my life would have been like if that neural scanner had never accidentally connected with my brain. If I had never experienced those 3 seconds of sight, would I have been happy in darkness? Would I have lived my whole life accepting what I was told? She looked directly at the audience. I think perhaps I would have been content, but I would never have been complete, because I would never have known what I was missing, and I would never have had the chance to choose. That's what matters most. Not sight or blindness, but choice. The fundamental right to decide your own path. 5 years after the conflict began, High Priest Sung-ho made an unexpected visit to New Seoul Station. He contacted Hana privately, asking to meet. They met at an astronomical observatory Hana had helped design. She greeted him at the entrance, seeing him clearly in a way she never had before as a child. He looked older now. His glowing patterns had faded somewhat, and there were lines of weariness in his face. Father, she said warmly. Hana. He didn't smile, but his voice held no anger. I came to see this observatory you built. People tell me it is remarkable. It is. Would you like a tour? He hesitated. I am not welcome in such places. The Coalition sees me as a symbol of oppression. The Union sees me as weak for not destroying you and your visor. I belong nowhere now. Hana took his hand gently. You belong wherever you choose to be, Father. Come, let me show you my work. She led him through the observatory, describing everything. The massive telescopes, the data collection systems, the holographic displays showing distant galaxies. She described it all using both visual terms and the sound-touch metaphors he understood. They reached the main observation deck, where a massive window showed the real sky, not a simulation. Stars scattered across the darkness like diamonds on black cloth. This is what I see every day, Hana said softly. This is what I chose. Sung-ho was quiet for a long time, processing the sounds of the equipment, the temperature changes, the subtle vibrations of the station, reading the universe in his own way. Do you ever regret it? He asked. The pain you caused? The families divided? The empire broken? Every day, Hana admitted. I think about the Velari who were happier before they knew they had a choice. I think about the communities torn apart by this conflict. I carry that weight. Then why continue? Why not say you were wrong, accept blindness again, and ease all this pain? Because truth matters more than comfort, Father. And freedom matters more than unity. A society built on lies and forced compliance is not a society worth preserving. Sung-Ho nodded slowly. He reached into his robe and pulled out a familiar shape. A phoenix visor. Hana stared at it in shock. Father? I have carried this for 2 years, he said quietly. Yuna made it for me. She said I should have the option, even if I never used it. I have held it countless times. Put it on halfway. Almost activated it. But I always stopped. Why? Fear of losing my faith. Of admitting I was wrong. Of seeing a universe that might be more beautiful than the divine darkness I always preached. He held the visor in shaking hands. But I came here today to ask you something. Would you help me? If I choose to see, would you be there with me? Tears filled Hana's eyes. Yes, Father. Of course, Sung-Ho lifted the visor. For a moment he held it there, trembling with indecision. Decades of faith warred with curiosity. Authority fought with vulnerability. Everything he had believed for 70 years balanced against one simple question. What if I'm wrong? He lowered the visor to his head. The neural contact points touched his skin. The camera's activated. Hana, I'm afraid. I know, Father. I was afraid too. What if I regret it? Then you'll know. And knowing is always better than wondering. He activated the visor. Light flooded into his consciousness. Colors, impossible and overwhelming, crashed through his mind. He gasped, his hands reaching out instinctively. Hana caught them. I'm here, Father. I'm here. Sung-Ho opened his eyes, truly opened them, and saw. He saw Hana's face. His daughter. The child he had raised, standing before him in detail he never imagined possible. He saw the tears on her cheeks. The love in her expression. The joy and fear mixed together. He saw the observatory around them. The elegant design. The soft lights. The holographic displays showing distant nebulae in colors he had no names for. And then he looked out the window.